dusted off and asked if he was okay, while my friends are screaming he attacked him, and it was still ignored. Like, so when someone comes at me, and it's like, it has nothing to do with the fact that it's even a white male. It's more the fact that you don't know what the fuck you're talking about because you haven't experienced it from my side. So don't come at me and try to correct me about something that you don't experience. Like, don't try to correct me about fear that you say is not warranted when you're not afraid to drive and get pulled over for a fucking broken taillight. Like,
that's harassment.
It's real, and it's something like
that's a worse situation property causes, you know. And you can file a civil complaint on that, somehow, resolve that matter,
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's the bigger aspect of like the mentality of the people that we interact with, that are in our lives that we know are good people. Yeah. Like, that's what's making this entire struggle and fight so hard, because at the core, these people do care about you. However, it doesn't change the fact that they could say wrong things to the people that are suffering. I feel like in a lot of ways, it's like, I wish people understood that, like, understanding the blessings that are put in your life or the privileges that you experience and being able to, like, acknowledge that wouldn't be such a bad thing. It's like, I was in the car thinking, like, what's like the most simplistic way you can put this to people? It's like, when you are working towards, when you're trying to fix something, if you're trying to like change something, you first have to acknowledge that a problem is there. Like, and that's what it is to acknowledge like a privilege. It's just saying like, cool, I can do this when this other person can't. Maybe that's the thing that should change. It's not to say that you're a bad person because you have that ability. It's not to say that anyone's ostracizing you. We're pissed off that you don't acknowledge that and then you downplay our suffering because we don't have those same privileges. That's really what it is. It's not like, it's not about saying like, I got this, well, what about this? It's like, no, cool, you can have that, that can exist too. I don't get that. I don't get that, like the argument aspect. Like, you get to argue this. I have to wake up and be afraid. You get to like speculate over what my suffering is and how valid it is or not. Meanwhile, I still wake up scared that if I get pulled over, it could be that moment where I could get shot. Like,
that's what I'm saying. That shouldn't be happening too.
At this point, it's not about pointing fingers. It's about acknowledging fuck-ups if we're really wanting to go for that peace for all man shit. Like, you can't say all lives matter when statistics are showing that cops don't see that Black Lives Matter. Like, you can't say all lives matter when it's clear that a group of people don't recognize that. All lives cannot matter until Black Lives Matter as well. Like, they can't. Like, how can all lives matter, but we're getting killed off? How can you have all lives matter, but a white person doesn't have to worry about like driving or existing or getting pulled over by a cop like a black person has to worry about when it comes to like fearing for their life? And again, this is not saying white people don't get killed by cops. They do. They do. And it is equally as fucked up and disgusting. All we're saying is you need to acknowledge that it is happening on a far more larger, alarming rate for African Americans. Like, that's just truth. That's just all it is. It's just facts. Like,
I don't believe
it's not even about the prejudice aspect. It's about like, this is what we're dealing with. Like, it's like other things. I look at it like this. Look at history. Like, let's one of the biggest arguments that's really been frustrating me over like the last 2 days is that people will be like, well, what about the civil rights movement? What about this? Shit has changed. We are better. It's not a deal anymore. Racism is like, this is my counter argument to that, because I've thought about this long and hard. Like, look at yes, civil rights made some law changes and stuff like that. They did not go in and fire the entire racist police department. They did not change policies when it came. Like, they were shifted around and masked it to a certain perspective. But those same people were just told that they had to change their rules. That's all that happened with the civil rights movement. It was like, cool, we're not telling you that you have to change your mindset towards things. We're just telling you you're not allowed to do this way anymore. So they found a gazillion other ways to change their power around and make it so that way they can go off and kill people and not get indicted. They can go off and kill people and get a fucking paid vacation. Like, this is all we have inherited bullshit from our generations before us. And until we acknowledge that, just because we said all people are created equal, it does not mean that our system is treating all people equally. Like, it's really that simple. Like, we're not saying that the person that like hears these comments are evil, or the white people that read them. We're not saying that they are the problem. We are saying that there is a system of oppression that has not changed with this like imagery that we present as our history about how the civil rights movement fixed all of racism in America. Like,
there's just too much.
Am I fucking crazy for thinking this? Like,
it's like, look at all this.
I want people to just listen to people that are crying out for help. That's really what I want. I want people that I really want people to just understand that compassion doesn't mean you have to ostracize like a group. That's not it. It's acknowledgement. It's being honest, not just with everyone around you. It's being honest with yourself about where you're at in life versus where the people around you are, and just like really being truthful about it. You know, like that to me is the core of how we can really start to address these things. If by one, including myself, because I do it too. Like, for example, here's an example of me checking my privilege. Here's an example of me checking my privilege. Like, I understand, we talked about this earlier, I understand I have tons of white friends that are willing to be there for me when, like, I don't have enough energy to constantly explain to people my perspective and the struggle of what it is to be a black person. And I can acknowledge that privilege because there are tons of black people who do not have white people that can do that for them, and they have to sit there and fight alone. So that is my privilege. Like, that is a real thing. I acknowledge that. There are people around that don't have white people to support them in the middle of this, that have to look at this from a so biased perspective because they don't have people reaching out to them like I do. That's a privilege for me. It's not a bad thing for me to be like, I got that.